Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is that time of the year again. The March international break is upon us, and it's probably the most hated international break. And that's saying something because no one likes international breaks for the most part. I think especially in March, people don't like them because it interrupts what is becoming the business end of most European leagues and most of the biggest leagues in the world that the most people watch. Because, a lot of leagues are in their final 9 or 10 games now. Cup competitions coming to a close. The Champions League is in its last 8. Uh, so it feels like you kind of just have to press pause on that for 2 weeks and go through a bunch of random international matches before you can get back to the real stuff. Uh, and there's plenty of memes about like how boring the international break is, how like worthless it is, kind of. Like people don't tend to like the international break, and so I want to make this video defending it because I actually really like the international break. I'm quite a big fan of international football. And I think there's two things. One, the international break is at the very least necessary, but also it can be really fun. And it can be fun to follow like random small nations and see what they do. Um, so on the point that it's necessary, I think that you have to have games because you have to have qualifiers for major tournaments. The World Cup isn't whittled down to 32 teams just by chance. Like you have to have qualifiers to get there, and that's the same with any international tournament. Asian Cup, AFCON, Euros, whatever. Um, so you have to have qualifiers for it, but it's also good for the spectacle at those tournaments because people love international tournaments, Euros, World Cup, whatever. Just not the qualifiers to get there. But you also have to have games to play as a team because the team chemistry isn't going to be there if you don't have international breaks. Because club teams have multiple training sessions together every week, 40 to 50 games a year. Plenty of time to gel as a squad. Um, so the team chemistry tends to be pretty good at club matches, but international teams don't have that benefit. They play maybe 6 to 10 games a year, have about a week to train each time for 2 games apiece. So you have to have international breaks to have some sense of team chemistry, or there's just not going to be any at the major international tournaments. The spectacle is going to be awful at major tournaments if the squad can't gel together. You can place the 11 best players on the field in your country, but if they have never played with each other before, it's going to be really hard for them to have a cohesive strategy and performance. So it's necessary. You have to have it for the spectacle of the international tournaments when they get there. But also, it's kind of just really fun if you really get into it, because you've got a bunch of different nations uh, competing at different levels, and yet they're all on the same playing field in theory. Uh, like Africa is probably the best example of this because there's just so much fun stuff. You know, in theory, Ghana should be miles ahead of Comoros, uh, and yet they get to compete at the same level in the same group. They both have a chance at the World Cup. Uh, and right now, Comoros is leading a group with Ghana in it. Ghana missed out on AFCON qualifying. Like, African football has been really insane in the past few years, and it's been really interesting to see because a lot of the established giants have been underperforming a bit at AFCON and qualifiers in general. Like Ghana missed out on AFCON, they're behind Comoros now. They're not the only ones underperforming. Right now, Nigeria is fifth in a very winnable group. They're behind Lesotho, Benin, South Africa, and Rwanda. And really, South Africa should be the only one giving them trouble. Uh, and Sudan's ahead of Senegal right now. So that's like a really fun thing. You're getting to see small nations compete and sometimes knock off some very good teams. Um, and you also get like a bunch of different matches and a bunch of different tournaments. Some confederations will be doing World Cup qualifiers, whilst others are doing friendlies or Nations League things. In CONCACAF right now, they're the only ones not doing World Cup qualifiers. They're having the Nations League final, which is more valuable than I'd say the UEFA Nations League. It's actually treated as a big international tournament, like a continental title. And the U.S. and Mexico particularly have had some really intense clashes in the Nations League finals. And on top of this, 14 teams are going to be in two-legged playoffs to become the last seven Gold Cup qualifiers. The Gold Cup is North America's international competition, like the Euros or AFCON. So, a lot's on the line there. And a lot's on the line because, missing out in a tournament is pretty big for a country like Costa Rica or Honduras who haven't qualified for the Gold Cup yet. And like club teams, you'll get very big support, sometimes from across the world, sometimes just from your local community, but nothing like an international team where the entire country's behind them. So these games can be massively meaningful because the whole country's rooting for you. The whole country's going to be disappointed if you lose. And you just get some fun stuff. You get so many different nations at different places going at it. I mean, the OFC qualifiers are going. Right now, Japan, Argentina, and four oceanic nations, I believe Tahiti, New Zealand, just a minute, let me check quick. Yeah, Tahiti, New Zealand, Fiji, and New Caledonia are going to qualify for the World Cup. And it's probably going to be New Zealand winning, but, if Fiji, Tahiti, or New Caledonia win, that would be their first World Cup appearance ever. That would be huge. You've gotten moments like this before, like St. Kitts and Nevis qualifying for the Gold Cup in 2023, or Georgia making their first ever Euros. You just get really meaningful results as well, and for smaller nations chasing this unimaginable dream of qualifying for a major tournament, every once in a while you get one that actually works, or even just upsets a bigger country. England's playing Albania and Latvia, and they're probably going to win both, but if Latvia even gets one goal against England, that's going to be something they remember for a very long time. And there's something really beautiful about that. San Marino still, fans of San Marino will talk about how they scored a goal against England in a game they lost 7-1. It's something they remember for ages. It's a really meaningful thing. And so it just means a whole lot, especially to smaller nations. And you get a ton of different countries going at it. And because of that, you're bound to get some upsets, and you're bound to get some really fun results from random places. I challenge anyone watching this to watch just any random international game outside Europe in this coming break. Outside Europe and South America, in fact. Watch something like Gambia, Kenya, or New Caledonia versus Tahiti, maybe Suriname versus Martinique. Just for the love of watching football, because football's still happening, and you might as well enjoy it, because if you get into it, you might be surprised by how much fun you can have with international football.